Hello, everyone. My name is Dr. April Spencer. I'm the co-host of UrbanMD TV, and you're watching UrbanMD TV's On-Call virtual series. Now, today we're going to be discussing a very relevant topic, and that is dissecting diabetes. Now, unfortunately, we're having this discussion because once again, in our hip-hop community, we've suffered another loss with a very influential producer, Irv Gotti. And he was aware that he had diabetes, but really struggled with this disease. So we thought it'd be important that we just take a deep dive into this conversation in terms of what causes the disease, what are some of the signs and symptoms, and most importantly, what is it that we can do in our community to help fight this chronic disease. So I have with me today Dr. Olajide Williams. He's a co-founder of Hip Hop Public Health and also a professor of neurology at Columbia University. Welcome, Dr. Olajide. How are you?
Hi, April. It's an honor to be here. Thank you for having me.
Great. Now, I love the name of your organization, the Hip Hop Public Health. It's so catchy. What inspired you to come up with that name, and how did it come into fruition?
Yeah, thanks for asking that question. It was actually a very organic name because the organization was founded by myself, me, and Dougie Fresh.
Wow.
And I represent the public health side of the organization. And Dougie represents hip hop, the hip hop part of the organization. So we just put the two together and came up with Hip Hop Public Health.
I love that. Now, one of the things that is so significant is that we're seeing like the growth, I guess, of hip hop, the aging of hip hop, and with that sort of evolution, we all are being impacted by this just chronic disease. So I really want to discuss how can this like rock and roll or hip hop lifestyle contribute to the chronic disease. It's like when we see it glamorized in the music videos or on television, on social media, it's the parties, the all night events, and it just looks so exciting. But on the other side, this may be catching up with us. So how do you think this lifestyle can be contributing to the diagnosis of all these diseases now?
Yeah, well, if you look at the lifestyle, April, if you look at what are the components of that lifestyle, well, there's a lot of alcohol, there are a lot of drugs, there's a lot of unhealthy eating, and poor diet, and there's a lot of poor sleep. You know, some people, as part of that lifestyle, don't sleep. So if I just took the poor diet, the alcohol, excessive alcohol consumption, the drug abuse, and the unhealthy sleep. Those three things alone are very, very potent risk factors for all kinds of diseases that cause premature death.
Well, one of the things that strikes me that many people may not be aware of is just how diabetes can affect the entire body, not just how our lifestyle can contribute to the disease, but it affects every organ system. So I want to ask two very important questions. One, what exactly is diabetes? Can you add a little bit of clarity on that? And I really would love for you to shed some light on how it affects the body.
Sure, sure. So diabetes is, first of all, it's one of the most common preventable diseases in this country. Diabetes is really a disease that affects how the body uses glucose or uses sugar for energy. And what usually happens is that the way our body gets sugar into its cells is via a hormone called insulin. And insulin is produced in an organ right below the stomach called the pancreas. And insulin production or problems with insulin is really what causes diabetes. Type 1 diabetes is when the body attacks the pancreas and destroys the pancreas's ability to produce insulin. And if you can't produce insulin, you can't drive glucose or those sugars into your cell. And so the sugar remains in your bloodstream. Type 2 diabetes is not caused by an attack of the body on the pancreas. It's caused by when the ability of the pancreas to produce insulin is insufficient, or the insulin that's actually produced is not effective. One of the most common causes of type 2 diabetes is obesity and being overweight. And
Mhm.
both of these insulin related deficiencies causes sugar to accumulate in the blood. And so people with diabetes, when it's poorly controlled, are walking around with very sugary bloodstreams.
Mhm. Well, here's the thing. Now we know that once a individual gets to the point where they're having those sort of symptoms, it's pretty evident. But what do people do that may not even know that they're, let's say, pre-diabetic? Or what are some of the silent symptoms? Because it can be in the very early stages, like a silent killer. So how can we even know if, what are some of the symptoms very early on so that we can start doing something about it before we become obese, before we develop the risk factors that put us into full-blown type 2 diabetes?
Great question. So some of the symptoms that someone might have, a lot of sugar, glucose intolerance or pre-diabetes, they're subtle symptoms. Like if you find that you start urinating excessively, you're waking up multiple times at night to go to the bathroom to urinate, urinating too much throughout the day. If you find that you're excessively thirsty, you always
Mm-hmm.
need to drink.
Mm-hmm.
You always need to drink. Those two symptoms occur quite early on in the evolution of diabetes, and then sometimes you can have blurry vision. You can notice that your wounds, you might have a wound or a boil, and these things don't heal properly, or you might find yourself losing weight unprovoked. You're not trying to lose weight, and you're losing weight without trying. And so these symptoms can be quite subtle. And it's very, very important if anyone has any of these symptoms to make sure that they get checked for diabetes. But the best way to keep diabetes away is to have an annual physical exam, because sometimes pre-diabetes has no symptoms that the person is conscious of. And the best way to pick it up to find out if you have it is by getting that annual physical exam, getting that annual checkup, one checkup a year where they check your blood pressure, they check you for diabetes,
Mm-hmm.
and that could be a life-saving checkup.
Yeah, and I think one of the reasons why a lot of these subtle symptoms go undetected is because oftentimes it can be correlated with just I'm getting older, I'm fatigued, I drank too much, that's why I'm so thirsty, or a lot of these things we just aren't aware. So I think prevention is definitely worth a pound of cure, and we've got to be more proactive with our health in terms of getting those annual visits. So that's great advice. Now, I know these are like some early signs, early symptoms, but oftentimes, unfortunately, diabetes is so pervasive, most people don't get a whisper with, hey, I'm tired, I'm thirsty. They get a yell, and that yell is a stroke.
Abs-
And it's just one of those things where we heard it reported in the media that Irv Gotti suffered not just one stroke, but possibly two. And so it's just unfortunate, but it's important that our listeners, our viewers know what is happening when a stroke is occurring. And if you are with someone that may be having a stroke, what are some of the things that that person can do?
Yeah, so just when you have diabetes, when you have a lot of blood in your sugar, when sugar is just swimming in your bloodstream,
Mm-hmm.
and the bloodstream is thickened and it's sluggish. There's inflammation in your blood vessels. There's damage to the blood vessel walls. All of that sugar just damages the blood vessels, causes inflammation, and as the blood vessels get damaged progressively, it can cause strokes. You can have blood clots developing in the blood vessels that block the oxygen supply to the brain, which is what causes a stroke. It can cause heart attacks, blocking off the oxygen supply to the heart. because
Hmm.
the blood vessel supplies the heart too. You can develop kidney failure. You start blocking off the blood vessels, and your kidney is not receiving oxygen and getting perfused. So you can get heart attacks, you can get kidney failure,
Hmm.
end up on dialysis. You can have strokes. Unfortunately for Mr. Gotti, stroke is what he had, but
Hmm.
it could have been any of the other three
Because
things.
again, it's a systemic disease, right, Dr. Williams? So it
Yeah.
can impact any part of our body. And is that what makes it so dangerous?
Even the eyes, April,
Yeah.
even the eye,
Hmm.
you can go blind from diabetes, and that's what makes it so dangerous. It can, wherever there's a blood vessel
Hmm.
going to an organ, if
Hmm.
that blood vessel is diseased by having too much sugar in your blood, then you can damage any organ. The most visible organ damage is when it happens in the brain, because if you have a stroke, you can lose physical function, you can lose
Sure.
mental function, you
Hmm.
can die on the spot. Likewise with a heart attack. So
Hmm.
diabetes is a very, very dangerous disease because of these issues that we're discussing. But what is most tragic is that it can be prevented. It can be
Yeah.
reversed. There are
Mhm.
things we can do to effectively treat it. No one needs to die from diabetes, April.
So wait, Dr. Williams. So you're saying that this is not automatically a death sentence because you've been diagnosed with diabetes. So what are some of the things that we can do to be proactive? Like we've got to take a self-assessment and really get real and try to understand like how do I know if I'm at increased risk? Because if we ask ourselves these honest questions, we can really try to impact this disease and prevent it or reverse it, is what you're saying.
That's what I'm saying. So,
Yeah.
look, you can buy diabetes testing kits in your
Mhm.
average CVS or Rite Aid, or
Really?
you can buy the glucose strips. You can
Hmm.
buy a strip that tests what we call an A1C, which measures the glucose in your bloodstream over a 3-month period. And so there are home kits for detecting diabetes. Although the best test is to go to a doctor because they can do the full exam and make sure it's not damaging all of these different organs that we're talking about. So it's critically important, April, to make sure that you get that checkup,
Hmm.
find out if you're pre-diabetic. If there's anyone listening to this broadcast that is overweight, you're at risk for diabetes. If there's anyone who is obese, you're at risk for diabetes. If there's anyone who's not adhering to a healthy lifestyle by eating healthy, if they're eating too much carbohydrates, fried chicken, soda, alcohol, pumping
Okay. Yeah.
right?
Hmm. Yeah.
You're at risk for diabetes. And so a healthy lifestyle is the first line of defense from
Hmm.
diabetes, a healthy lifestyle.
Yes. Hmm.
Second line of defense is making sure that if you are diagnosed with diabetes, you take that medicine, you take that insulin, you take that tablet that's going to help lower that blood sugar that you're suffering from.
Yeah. So it sounds like people really need to take just personal responsibility and just know that they can be encouraged that this is something that they can do something about. We can do something about. And I just love what your organization is doing. And I know it can seem so profound with so many of the chronic diseases that are affecting our community. But I would love to take a deeper look at this video that the Hip Hop Public Health has put together. Stroke No Joke. I love the name.
Ain't no joke.
Let's
Stroke
take a
ain't
look
no
at
joke. Stroke ain't no joke.
it.
Know if he don't sound right, then he's doing the show. Sway when he walks, then he's doing the show. Slur when he's talk, then he's doing the show. Call 911, cause it ain't no joke. Now F is for the face, and A is for the arms. S is for the speech, and T is for the time. Time to do what? Call 911. Time to do what? Call
Watching
911.
this video, I like how you make it very clear that we've got to make sure we take responsibility in our community, know the signs and symptoms, the warning signs and symptoms, and really do something about it. Now, what is your organization doing in order to help just save lives in our community? I know Stroke No Joke is a great tool with this video, but what are some of the other things you guys are doing?
So we go to the school system. We really focus on young people. We focus
Mm-hmm.
on the public school system. We focus on after school programs. We go into communities, and we focus on the youth because we believe that that's where we can really begin building those healthy habits. If you
Mm-hmm.
and I think it was Frederick Douglass that said that it's easier to build up a child than repair an adult. While we
Sure.
have to continue trying to repair our adults, especially in the hip hop community, when it
Mm-hmm.
comes to their health, we also have to recognize that we got to build up the young. We got to help them with those healthy habits so that when they become hip hop stars, they're already in the habit of living healthy, and won't end up dying like this generation.
Yeah.
Too often before age 60. And so we focus on the youth, April. We bring what we call primordial prevention programs, which is really programs that focus on health literacy. You
Okay.
know, teaching kids, how to be healthy, brushing your teeth twice a day, not going
Mm-hmm.
to bed with food in your mouth,
Yeah.
making sure you know what a healthy meal is, making sure you know what the types of things that you need to avoid or deal with in smaller portions. We created a system called Go Slow Whoa, which is
Oh, tell me more about that.
it's a
Go
traffic light.
slow roll.
Go slow, whoa. Go slow,
Okay.
whoa. Actually, Chuck D actually did the song,
Mm-hmm.
the Go Slow Whoa song for the organization. And
Okay.
Go Slow Whoa really breaks down food into three categories based on the traffic light label system. So we have the Go food, which is the green light, the green food. Those are your vegetables. Those are your fruits, those are your fiber and all those things that are really good for you. And then you got
Mm-hmm.
the slow foods, right? Which are
Okay.
foods that have high nutrient density, but they also have a high caloric content. Unlike the first one, the vegetables that I mentioned, which have high nutrients and low caloric content.
Mm-hmm.
Slow foods you can eat sometimes. The go foods you can eat as often as you want. And then you got the woe foods, and
Okay.
these are foods that have very high caloric content and
Mm-hmm.
very low nutrient content. So you're basically just eating empty calories with no nutrient value. And those are the fried chickens,
Sure.
refined carbohydrates like ice cream. And so we bring these types of simple classifications of food groups to schools.
But
And
it's
so
so profound, though. It sounds very simple, but a lot of times the parents themselves don't even know what a balanced meal looks like.
they
And,
don't
to them, it may seem like, they're doing the right thing, putting, your fresh fruits and vegetables, but they're pulling up at, a fast food restaurant.
salad
And
dressing, the salad
yes,
dressing,
with all the
crazy,
salad dressing and all
crazy.
the things that go on, and all of a sudden you're at 3,000 calories, you might as well have a burger. So I
Right.
love that you are empowering the youth to be able to impact their parents. I have two children, and I know oftentimes in marketing, we know that children can influence
That's the
parental
power.
behavior. Yes.
That's
So
the power.
why don't we use this pester power to help them to encourage the adults in their lives to make better decisions? So we
Exactly what we're
love what you're doing, Dr. Williams. You have got to keep us informed on all the amazing things that hip hop public health is engaged in. And I just want to thank you again for joining us. And before you go, any final words for those that are out there watching that may have been recently diagnosed with diabetes or think they maybe need to be evaluated? What would you say to that person?
I would just say you can do it. I would
Hmm.
say you can do it. You can beat it. You can beat diabetes, but you have to confront it. You have to learn about it. You have to know the enemy, know what it is that you're dealing with. Because if you don't know what you're dealing with, you're going to struggle to defeat it. The good thing
Hmm.
about diabetes is that we know it, we understand it, we understand it inside out. And so learn as much as you can. Do your research on diabetes, understand what you have, and then take it on head on and defeat it because diabetes is reversible.
Thank you so much, Dr. Williams, for helping to dissect diabetes. This has been a wonderful conversation, and you've been watching UrbanMD TV's On Call virtual series. Thank you so much for joining us, and please make sure that you follow UrbanMD TV on all social and digital platforms. Until next time, this is Dr. April Spencer. Be well.